What about Hiram?
I survived a bear attack, Dad. I can't live my life in fear of when he might come after me anymore.
The Gargoyle King gets unmasked and Hiram gets shot. Let's break down all the drama of Season 3, Episode 10 of Riverdale and find out just what happened. Rise and shine on, you lovely people. Lisa here, and it's Wednesday, or maybe Thursday morning when you're watching this as it's uploaded. But that means it is Riverdale time. So this episode finds the return of old characters, more death, shooting injuries, and breakups. But it also finds the kids finally doing some normal high school things. Like, I feel like we forget they're high school students. They don't have them in class. It's kind of like, how are they even going to graduate? But in this episode, they finally take their SATs. So I feel like they were like shoving that in there to be like, oh yeah, guys, remember, these kids do go to school. Anyway, I have no idea how they found time to study for these while running a speakeasy, hunting down serial killers, and running gangs and stuff, but somehow they managed. Now, before I dive into this episode, I didn't have time to make a separate video about the details of the musical episode, so I'm just gonna do it right now. So, Riverdale will be tackling Heathers for their musical this season, which is kind of interesting since when they did a reboot of the Heathers movie in a TV show form, last year, the year before, I don't know, it had a lot of controversy, so I feel like, you know, it's kind of an interesting way to go, but I feel like the theme does sort of fit with this show, and well, they've released the cast list, and it seems like Jughead isn't on the character list, so I'm guessing he's not going to be singing, so all of those people who are still waiting for Cole Sprouse to relive his Disney days, dream is a wish your heart makes kind of thing, that's not going to happen. So I'm guessing Jughead's going to be behind the camera yet again. But what I do like is we have Sweet Pea and Josie taking on some lead roles, which seems awesome. And there's also this character called Peaches and Cream on the list.
Know what I mean? Peaches and Cream.
Someone we haven't met yet who's going to be played by, I think, Bernadette Beck. Anyway, let's jump back into this week's episode. So, your abbreviated recap for those of you with some short attention spans, which I know I have every now and then. Tall Boy is revealed to be the Gargoyle King, who works for Hiram, aka the Man in Black. We have Hiram getting shot in this episode, but we don't find out who. Claudius seems to be murdered, and FP becomes the new sheriff in town. So how did we get to all of these plot points? Well, you know what time it is. It's time to get recapping and find out just what happened. First up, we have Betty versus Alice. So when Betty's card is declined at Pop, she confronts Alice, who has drained Betty's bank account and college fund and donated it all to the farm, which of course pisses Betty off.
I swear to God, you are not cornering me into joining your cult.
Betty then seeks legal advice from Sierra, who says that since the paperwork is forged because two parents had to sign off on it, Betty's gonna have to go see Hal to get him to sign an affidavit saying that Alice forged the signature. So Betty reluctantly goes to see Hal, and he agrees to sign the papers, but only if Betty brings him a copy of the Griffins and Gargoyles manual that he's heard so much about because he seems to be fascinated by the Gargoyle King. He thinks maybe he can help Betty figure out who it is. So Betty reluctantly brings Hal the manual and he signs the paperwork. But then she gets quite the surprise. Hal claims that he was the original Gargoyle King who killed Principal Featherhead on Ascension Night, but that his actual goal was to kill as many members of the Midnight Club as he could because they were all sinners. Now, it seems like Betty's not fully buying this story because, you know, the only explanation besides Hal telling the truth is that someone had to have told him about Ascension Night. Now, when Betty's leaving the prison, the guard says that Alice Cooper has been coming to visit Hal every Monday like clockwork, but Betty calls BS on this because she knows Alice hasn't gone to see Hal in months, but she confronts Alice anyway, and Betty knows someone's posing as Alice Cooper, so she calls the prison to get a description. And what do you know, it's kind of no surprise, but it's been Penelope Blossom visiting Hal, and barf, it's apparently been for conjugal visits. Betty then confronts Penelope about all of this, and Penelope mentions that she did probably mention Ascension Night to Hal, so Betty goes back to confront him and call him out for his tricks of trying to just keep Betty coming back to him. She then insists that she's never coming back to see Hal again, but, you know, Hal, he knows Betty, and he knows she'll be back. Later, Betty returns home to find Evelyn and members of the farm celebrating Alice's new job at the news station, and they reveal that the farm has bought Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and the farm will have a permanent home in Riverdale, and they thank Betty for her contribution. And well, Hal was right. Betty goes back to see him to vent about Alice, and then they start chatting about, you know, normal family things like Betty taking the SATs in college and such. And what I want to know is that Betty got the affidavit signed. Why is she not taking legal action to get her money back and take that donation away from the farm? I don't know, but you know, Alice has gone full on like cult brainwashed mode. So Betty really did get the short end of the stick. You know, her and Cheryl. You know, Betty got a serial killer and a brainwashed cult follower for parents. I don't know, did Cheryl or Betty get the worst end of the stick here? Now let's move on to Archie. So they start the episode telling us Archie died, but you know, he actually didn't. They're just saying that the old Archie died, the Archie that we knew. And, well, turns out Archie woke up in the hospital and decided he was done running, so he returns home to Riverdale, and he's no longer worried about Hiram coming after him. And you know what? Fred isn't afraid of Hiram either. Archie then goes to see Veronica at the speakeasy, and after asking like 1 or 2 concerned questions, this is what she's really concerned with.
What are you doing here? Where have you been? Why haven't you called me? What the hell happened to your hair?
Oh, Veronica. Anyway, after a tiny bit of chit-chat, Archie and Veronica get down to doing what we know they do best. Apparently the only thing they really do in this relationship. Having sex, and it magically seems like sex always cures Archie's like aches and pains and severe injuries, because he was pretty much wincing in pain earlier in this episode, and then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I can throw this girl on top of the bar and remove my clothes and all of this. Moving on, everyone seems to be noticing that Archie has changed, because honestly it's like, no shit, Sherlock, of course he's gonna change. He's been through a lot of crap. But Archie does try to go back to his normal life at high school, and you know, Principal Weatherby suggests that Archie is too far behind and says that he should repeat his junior year, which Archie does not want to do because he wants to graduate with his friends. And I feel like it was kind of creepy the way Weatherby was like trying to get Archie to say yes to like repeating a year. It seems like Weatherby wanted Archie around for maybe a certain reason. I don't know. Did anybody else get those vibes? Meanwhile, on the veggie front, Veronica tells Reggie that Archie's back and they can't continue their relationship. So now Archie's pretty much determined to not repeat junior year. He's playing catch up, and Betty and Jughead help Archie study for the SATs, but it seems like Archie's pretty much what we expected, more brawn than brain. Betty then decides to help Archie kind of feel like himself again, and they dye his hair back to red, and she takes him to the speakeasy where he walks into a surprise welcome home party, complete with another opportunity for Veronica to sing, this time in a foreign language. But during this performance, Archie has a panic attack as he keeps seeing, you know, Hiram and his encounters with him and all of that. And he runs out of the place, and this seems to piss Reggie off, who confronts Archie in the locker room for the so-called stunt he pulled at the party. And it's kind of like, dude, slow your roll, because you're supposed to be one of Archie's best friends. Like, did you not try to go check up on Archie? He's just been through some traumatic shit, and you didn't go try to check on him. It seemed like no one tried to check on Archie. So yeah, Reggie, you're not winning me over at all. But then Reggie's attitude kind of seems to change once he sees Archie's clumb.
Serious? You were attacked by a friggin' bear? Damn. No wonder why you're all messed up.
Yeah, like I said, sorry Reggie, I don't think it's that bear attack that messed Archie up. I mean, how about everything he's gone through since this show began, you know, being hunted down by a serial killer, and Hiram branded forced into a fight club, watching his dad almost die multiple times, among many, many other things. Anyway, we see a lot of people getting concerned with Archie over the course of this episode, including Fred, who's very concerned about Archie's behavior, and Archie's just getting frustrated with the SATs and all of this, so he decides to ask Reggie for help about how he can cheat, you know, about cheating. But when Archie asks that question for advice on cheating, he takes that as Archie knowing about his fling with Veronica, and then things get real awkward. So when Archie returns home, he finds Veronica in his room because Reggie made a phone call to Veronica. They know they have to end their relationship, but not before one more night of bow. And yeah, like I said, these two just always have sex. Now, I know I've complained about this before in many of my videos, and maybe there are relationships like this with teenagers in real life. I'm sure it happens. But with this show, we still haven't seen Archie and Veronica have like a relationship of substance. Like, you compared Archie and Veronica to Jughead and Betty, and the amount of sex that they've shown these couples having on the show, and it's like, yeah, it's no surprise that Betty and Jughead are the ones still making it, and Archie and Veronica keep breaking up over and over. Like, I'm sorry, Veronica. She's smart, she's strong, but this girl, she's still very selfish. Like, she still has all those me tendencies. Like when she was telling Archie, like, I can't believe you left and you left me. And I'm like, He left his entire family, woman. Okay, I'll stop venting. Let's go back to Archie. So he has another panic attack during the SATs and storms out. And then he hears that Hiram got shot. So he goes to see Veronica at the hospital, and she kind of in her own way accuses him of shooting Hiram. And then they break up. And then in swoops Reggie with flowers and balloons and his visit to Veronica at the hospital. Meanwhile, Archie goes and decides to turn to what helped him survive juvie, and that is fighting. He strings back up that punching bag, and this time he mixes his fighting with some alcohol. So yeah, seems like Archie's about to go down yet another dark spiraling path. Now, let's talk about the unmasking of the Gargoyle King. So Jughead fills Archie, Veronica, and Betty in on how Fangs is undercover with the Gargoyle gang, and they're getting close to unmasking this guy. Fangs then informs Jughead that the Gargoyle King is impressed with his sales, and they're going to induct Fangs into the inner circle at a ceremony the next night. So Jughead says the serpents will be there as backup to make sure nothing happens to Fangs and to try to capture the Gargoyle King. Meanwhile, Hiram's still up to no good and tells Penelope and Claudius that he wants to buy Sisters of Quiet Mercy. It's part of his expansion plan and whatnot. It's not going to be a brothel. And he also tells Claudius that Claudius is going to be the new sheriff, whether he likes it or not, and Claudius does not seem thrilled about this. Then Hiram goes to see Hermione and tells her that she better appoint Claudius for her own sake, and we find out that he's been keeping a lot of his plans from Hermione. Then at Fangs' induction ceremony, just as he's about to be branded with the mark of the gargoyle, the serpents swoop in and capture the Gargoyle King, and they unmask him.
Tallboy?
Yep, it's Tallboy, which kind of makes sense since we only heard he was dead and never saw he was dead. So like, unless you fully see someone dead on the show, they're usually not dead. And even when you see someone dead on the show, it doesn't mean they're dead. But also, like, Tallboy's like the tallest dude that's been on this show, plus he worked for Hiram earlier. So yeah, it just makes me wonder if the producers picked Tallboy because fans had thought in the past he was the Black Hood and were convinced of that. So they're like, yeah, let's just reuse this character. Then again, they couldn't really reveal it as a new character because that would just be like, well, where'd this person come from? Anyway, they take Tallboy down to the bunker and he admits to a bunch of things that, of course, only the Gargoyle King or somebody working for him would know. And then he says the Man in Black, aka Hiram, will not meet with him unless he has something Hiram really wants. So that's when Jughead asks Archie if he'd be willing to be bait for Hiram. So Archie does not hesitate and agrees. They then have Tallboy call Hiram saying he has the Red Paladin and to meet in their usual spot. But when that meeting goes down, it's not Hiram who shows up, it's Claudius. And it's not Tallboy in the Gargoyle King outfit, it's FP. So it looks like tricks and things are being figured out on all sides. But then FP decides to pull out a citizen's arrest and arrest Claudius for his dealings with Hiram. And it's kind of like, is that actually a thing he's allowed to do? Later, Hiram is on the phone and it sounds like he's telling Hermione, because he says my love or something like that, to not worry about Claudius's arrest because he's always one step ahead. But then he finds out he's not one step ahead because Hiram gets shot. And then someone else gets shot, and that's Tallboy, who was trying to escape, and Fangs and Sweet Pea were there, and it seems like one of them shot him, so they're freaking out over killing this guy. And, well, Jughead's solution is apparently to have a party to maybe try and cover things up, since most people think that Tallboy is dead anyway. And then we have our next casualty. When a guard goes to bring Claudius his dinner in his jail cell, Claudius is dead on the floor. And then we see FP meeting with Hermione, and she says, it's time. And he gets this smirk on his face and nods. So what is it time for? Well, at the serpent party, we find out Fangs is now a serpent again, but he starts to freak out when the cops show up, and out steps the new sheriff.
Dad. Sheriff Jones now, boy. Listen up! You're looking at the new law in Riverdale.
Okay, so there's a lot of things to process here in this episode. For me personally, Tallboy as the Gargoyle King wasn't that exciting of a reveal, but then again, like I said, it had to be someone we've seen before, right? But Hiram, he's still got to be working for someone higher up than him, right? So the real question I have is, like, who's that person, and what is this whole thing with Hiram's expansion plans? Also, the farm moving into Riverdale, just creepy. They were able to go and buy, Sisters of Quiet Mercy because, Hiram got shot and he's out of commission. But maybe, I feel like this will be an interesting storyline and a nice break from the Hiram drama because, he's alive, but they said he's going to be out of commission. So that will give a chance for the farm storyline to kind of get brought to the forefront and we can figure out this whole Evelyn Evernever, Edgar Evernever thing and maybe get old Alice back, because I'm not a fan of this Alice and what they're doing with her. I loved how they had Alice, you know, at the beginning of the show being this uptight woman or whatever you want to call her, and then all of a sudden we got to see her let loose, really embrace her past, become this badass. But right as that was happening, they decided to throw this cult over, and it's kind of like she's thrown everything out the window, and she's just, I don't know, I'm not a fan of it. I want Betty to rescue her from the farm, rescue Polly too, rescue the kids. Yeah, but with Hiram out of commission, it also gives Hermione a chance to carry out some plans that she's apparently been cooking up. You know, she's been working with FP. She seems like it's time. It's time for what? What is their ultimate plan? I hope that this is to take down Hiram and to turn Riverdale back into what it was and not some other shady business that they're doing. Because I like to believe Hermione does have a good side and that FP is ultimately good as well. As far as Archie going down another dark spiral, not really interested in that. And I'm sorry, Archie fans, I'm actually kind of excited that Veronica and Archie are done for now. Now, as far as who shot Hiram, I feel like we already know or have a good idea, or maybe they're making us think, because the trailers that they've shown for this half of the season show Kelly Ripa, who's playing Hiram's mistress, holding a gun. So is that her because she shot Hiram because she found out, you know, he's still with his wife, or any other shady things that are going on? Is it her pulling a gun because people go to find her? Could somebody else have shot him? Could it have been FP? Could it have, who is it? But right now I'm leading towards the mistress. As far as Claudius, I kind of feel like maybe FP took him out to make sure that Claudius, or Hermione actually, to make sure Claudius couldn't be sheriff and Hermione could carry out her plans now that she knows that Hiram, you know, is out of commission for a little bit. Yeah, all I know is I do want to see Fred take on Hiram, because this part in the episode got me excited, and if anybody's gonna take down Hiram, I know it should be Archie, or Hermione, but I really want it to be Fred.
Hiram, if you harm a hair on Archie's head, I will kill you. Make no mistake about it, and I will be at peace with whatever the consequences of that are.
But I think that wraps up my rambling for this episode, so I'm gonna shut up and let's roll the promo for the next episode.
Go there. It's a setup.
It's like she's committed the perfect murder.
No rest for the wicked.
Not in a wicked town.
Alright, all you Riverdale fans, now it's time for you to sound off in the comments section with your thoughts on this episode. What do you think of Sheriff FP? Kind of think he looks good in a uniform. Are you sad that Veronica and Archie broke up? Who do you think shot Hiram and killed Claudius? Let me know all your thoughts and theories down in the comments, and after that you can click right over here for more of my recaps. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my recaps, interviews, and other fun things. And as always, my name's Lisa. Thanks for hanging out with me and helping me with my Riverdale addiction. See you next time.